is Megan from Bath Garden Center. Today's video is going to be about common houseplant diseases and how you can treat them, what to look for. So the first disease that I want to talk about is called root rot. It's very, very common in your houseplants, caused by a fungal pathogen that thrives in soggy soil and wet climates. So if your pot is retaining a lot more moisture than it should be, or it's not draining well, or it doesn't have a drainage hole, something where it's collecting up a lot of moisture, that's going to be something that could cause your plant some root rot. So your plant would start to wilt from the bottom up. So it's, rotting the root system down, so you'll start seeing a decay from the base of your plant all the way up to the foliage eventually if you don't fix it. Another thing you can look for in finding if you have root rot in any of your plants, the soil can often become pretty stinky. The water, when you water the plant and it runs to the saucer or in the sink, that can be kind of smelly too. A well-potted plant that drains really well should not have a weird smell. So if it starts smelling bad, you might want to take a look at that, take it out of the pot and see how much water it's retaining. So basically how you have to treat that is, if it's not too far into rotting in the root system, you can just take the plant out of the pot, take off all of the excess soil, and you can rinse the root system off, kind of get off all the old, gross, infected soil. And if the root system looks okay and it's not brown or stringy or soggy or looks really unhealthy, that is something that could potentially come back. You want to look for white, strong roots. That's an indication that it's still alive and it could still bring itself back together. So look for white roots. If you don't have that, it's a good indication of maybe it's not going to do well at that point. So look for that. And then another thing you could do too, if perhaps the root system is already too diminished from the root rot, you can just clip off a really healthy part of the foliage, kind of to the base of it, or like the stem, and you can stick it in rooting powder and put it in water and see if it'll re-root, and then you can make a new plant. You want to make sure though, when you are trying to propagate something, that you cut away a few inches away from any infected area of the plant, so that there's a better chance of it not being carried on to your new propagated plant. So yeah, cut a few inches away from that, but if you think that it can still be brought back to life, you can give it a shot and go about it in those ways. Another thing you're going to want to do for most of these diseases that your plants can get is make sure that you're refreshing the soil and taking away the old soil that's retained too much moisture. It's going to have bacteria or fungus or something that's not going to be very good for your plant in the soil. So you need to take that all out. And then as far as reusing a pot that potentially had a plant that has a disease or even like a pest on your plant, you want to disinfect your previous pot. So use a bleach or something, really rinse it off so that it kills off any harmful residue from the disease or from the pest. So you want to give it like a fresh new home where there's no infected areas left in your potting soil and in your pot. The other thing that you want to do when you repot it is use maybe a better draining soil, something with rock or perlite, vermiculite, something that can help it drain better so that it's not retaining so much moisture. So that's going to have kind of how you want to tackle the root rot situation. So the next one's going to be fungal leaf spots. Like the root rot, it's going to be something that happens in a wetter climate or staying too soggy in the soil that can cause fungal leaf spot as well in your plant. This is going to kind of affect more of the foliage. So you'll notice change of color, either yellowish, brownish, any dark kind of color that your plant is kind of getting little spots that look like that. That's most likely could be fungal leaf spot. Along with the change of color of your foliage, It could potentially also start causing your plant to drop its leaves and kind of start taking over your plant in that way, and it could eventually lead to something much worse and something that you maybe could not come back from. But you want to apply a fungicide when you see this kind of thing. Funguses really don't like, the fungicides and the copper fungicide that we carry. So use something like that against it. Oftentimes you only need 1 or 2 applications to fix something like that, but be on top of it and keep applying your fungicide. Discard any of the affected areas of your plant, so take away the leaves that are pretty damaged, so that it can encourage more growth towards new foliage that's not so infected. And you'll also want to do the same thing in that you want to check the soil. If it's too soggy and retaining enough or too much moisture, get rid of it and then give it a proper new pot and some well-draining soil. So that's going to be the biggest thing, is that you need your plant to have a well-draining soil so that it does not hold on to excess moisture. So we've got bacterial leaf spot, which is the next one. This can also be caused from too soggy of soil or a wet climate that is not tolerating. Most of these diseases are going to be something caused by excess water in your pot. So well draining soil for that. What you're going to look for is it's going to cause some yellowish color in your leaves or foliage. You could get some brownness in there. It could kind of make your foliage mushy, or whatever the part it's affected, it can kind of be mushy. So look out for that. Sometimes this only affects the foliage. In that case, you can just remove the foliage and try to bring the plant back to life. Just discard whatever is infected, fertilize, give it a new soil, water it appropriately, and it should start coming back and thriving, as long as you are changing up kind of the previous way that you potted things up, or the previous potting soil might retain too much. So you might have to amend the soil, but that's going to be a way to get your plant back and going. Next disease is going to be powdery mildew. You can see this indoors and outdoors. It does happen to your indoor plants from time to time, though. Some plants are more susceptible to powdery mildew. You can see it on your cactus. You can see it on, your squash outside. There's a bunch of different places that it can affect. But basically, it's an airborne, fungal spore that just travels through the air and can land on your plants. Plants that are getting too much water or too much water on the leaves can be more susceptible to powdery mildew. It's a really easy treatment. You just want to use a copper fungicide, do a couple of applications. 1 or 2 is usually when you start seeing some good results. So it's not something that you have to kind of keep treating. That is like a really hard thing to treat. So it's not super harmful to your plant, but if you let it go for too long, it could affect your plant in not the best way. It's going to affect the foliage a lot too, so it could start drooping or dropping leaves and just really not doing as well as it would without the powdery mildew. But easy treatment, just a couple of applications of copper fungicide that should really start helping out the plant. So that's how you want to treat that. So gray mold is another common houseplant disease. So it's going to be caused by fungus spores traveling to your other plants. It could be airborne that way, so it can easily travel to other plants. So basically, it could become a serious issue if it's not treated. It could potentially kill your plant. It causes brown spots on petals of plants and can completely destroy a bloom on a plant. When you notice that the gray mold is happening, or you've confirmed that it is a gray mold that's attacking your plant, you want to remove the affected areas, affected foliage, affected blooms, anything that is kind of killed a part of that plant you want to remove. Again, if you are going to keep trying with that plant and you've just removed the foliage, make sure that you cut back far enough that it's not going to continue to carry the gray mold within the plant. If you don't cut close or far away enough, it could, continue to have that gray mold in there and then just absorb gray mold through the plant again. So remove the affected areas. You want to be better about giving your plant more air circulation so that it's drying out a little bit more and it's not retaining as much moisture that way. So bottom line is, a lot of these diseases can be caused from soggy soil or too much moisture, or not a well draining pot or well enough draining soil. So you want to make sure that you've got a proper pot that will drain. You want to make sure that you have a soil that maybe is amended with some more perlite, vermiculite rock, lava rock, to help the drainage of the soil on the plant. So if you provide those plants enough of a drier climate and amended soil appropriate to what it needs, it should be a really good preventative from getting any of those diseases, powdery mildew, those kinds of things. Again, they do become more susceptible if you're getting more water on the foliage, so try to avoid keeping the foliage wet or spraying it down a lot. You can kind of mist it very lightly over your plant, and that would kind of help with the humidity, but there's no need to drench this plant all the time, especially if you're noticing that the moisture level is still pretty far up at the top few inches and it's been carrying that for like a week or two. That's a good feel for you don't have a well enough draining soil. So well draining soil and treatment for these diseases are pretty simple. You just need to be a little proactive and keep in mind of the proper soil and environment that it needs to be in. Well, thanks for watching this video. I hope that it helps you guys with any of the diseases that you see at home. And if you have any questions, feel free to call us at Bath Garden Center. Thank you for watching.